Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And we thank all people that are looking at us and reviewing this seminar. This is our first Dearborn Heights legal seminar for veterans. We're going to go around and introduce ourselves. We're going to start with our mayor, Mayor Bazzi. As you see in our flyer, it's just purely accidental that there's a Marine picture. Just about not the fact that our mayor is a former Marine, Marine Reserve.
Never, once a Marine,
always a Marine. We want you to understand that how it's inclusive of all veterans, of all age, all groups, and we're so grateful for our friend Murray being here from Veterans Treatment Court in Dearborn. It's something that we want to let our residents know in Dearborn Heights that we are open, and we have several attorneys here that are available for our veterans. They will give their information and numbers for veterans to call. We're also in contact with the Veterans Association to have any claims or applications filled out. So I will turn it over to Mayor Bazzi to say a few words.
Thank you, Mr. Farinha. Again, my name is Mayor Bill Bazzi, retired Marine also. And so again, as Mr. Farinha mentioned, this is not about just one particular service. This is for all veterans. And I'm grateful that Mr. Farinha set this thing up, to do a veterans event, here in the city of Dearborn Heights. It's never been done before. We have some resources that we're going to be talking about, and we have several amazing attorneys here that are willing, and I'm grateful that they took their own time to come here and, to speak and just make sure that, the veterans, they have what they need. And we do have, we're going to be talking about the Veterans Court, here, close by in Dearborn. Judge Gene Hunt, he's also a Marine, that he's leading the Veterans Court in Dearborn. So thank you for all being here today. I appreciate everybody's participation and also taking valuable time to be here with us today.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And issues that I know veterans face that we want to start addressing are labor issues, employment issues, situations where it's a friend of the court or a custody issue, battle where PTSD may be introduced. So we want to make people available to call us, and we can direct you to the correct resources. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Murray from the Veterans Treatment Court in Dearborn.
Thank you, Roger. Good evening, everyone. My name is Murray Davis. I'm the project director and program coordinator for the Dearborn Veterans Treatment Court. We're right next door, and what I want to do is basically take a few minutes to share with you what we're about. I find oftentimes most people really don't know what the Veterans Treatment Court is all about. So I want to just kind of give you kind of a brief overview of what we do in the Veterans Treatment Court for our veterans that get themselves into the criminal justice system. And that's basically what we're there for. A lot of times, many of you who are our veterans know that when you serve in the military, you don't necessarily come out the way you went in. There's always some kind of change. And through the service that they do, oftentimes they're affected by PTSD and other issues that cause them to abuse drugs and alcohol. And when that occurs, generally speaking, it's very easy to get connected with the criminal justice system in that manner. Now, when that happens, fortunately for veterans, there might be an alternative to the normal, traditional justice court system. In other words, the reason we're there is we are very proud of the middle name we have, and that's treatment. A lot of the things that we do involve not only going through the probation periods that a typical offender would go through, but we like to think of ourselves helping participants. And our participants are through the treatment aspect of what we do. Now, Dearborn Veterans Treatment Court is very, well, I should start and say there are 5 Veterans Treatment Courts in Wayne County. There's 28 Veterans Treatment Courts in the state of Michigan. We're one of the 5 in Wayne County. We have one in, obviously, Dearborn. We have one in Redford. We have one in Southgate, and 2 in the city of Detroit. All of the district court veterans treatment courts work with misdemeanor criminals. In other words, misdemeanor criminals, crimes that veterans will get with. And then if you have a felony, you are automatically eligible for the Detroit Third Circuit Veterans Treatment Court downtown. So with that in mind, I'd like to kind of explain a little bit about what we do. Is this being shown to those that are tuned in, the video?
No, it'll be recorded.
Okay, all right. Then what I'll do is share with you that we're fortunate in Dearborn in a number of ways. First off, we don't do the treatment programs by ourselves. We're connected with not only the VA, but we're connected with auxiliary treatment providers, and we're connected with one important element that I think makes the whole thing work well, and that's volunteer veteran mentors. The mentors aspect are the ones that help coach the participants, is what we call our veterans, through that process. We're fortunate enough to have your mayor, Bill Bazzi, as one of our former mentors. Well, he's not really former, just like a Marine. You're never former anything. So, but basically that's how we get the veterans through our program. Typically it runs from 12 to 18 months. But in Dearborn, we're fortunate to have several grants. We have a state grant, which is normal for veterans treatment courts, and we have 2 federal grants, which is not normal. And the federal grants allow us to add additional services, which we call auxiliary treatment services, to our regular programming. And we're fortunate enough that we have, for example, we have Lyft rideshare services for those participants who have difficulty getting to our court hearings and getting to the probation officer appointments. Because generally, if you think about it, if you got to our court because you had a DUI or something that caused you to lose your driving privileges, how are you going to get to the things the court requires you to get to? So our rideshare services allow us to do that. So we have that available.
And Murray, by DUI, you mean driving under the influence of alcohol or a substance?
Or correct. I'm sorry. I used an acronym that they may not realize. But it's like, thank you, Roger. But that's one of the aspects we offer as well. But more importantly, there are other treatment aspects that we have available too. For example, we have a program that's a professional photography program called the Seeing Lens. It's a 10-week professional photography program that we offer to our participants free of charge. We provide all the equipment. We have a professional photographer. We have a therapist out of VA that basically works with that group. And we run 10-week courses throughout the year. Typically it's 2 a year, 1 or 2 a year that we run. And our participants in our Veterans Treatment Court get an opportunity to take advantage of a skill that they may not ever have thought about. Think about that. Now, why is that important? It's important because it's part of therapy. I don't know if you realize it or not, things that are in the creative arts, like photography, help you get through the various aspects that might be dealing with PTSD and TBIs and the other aspects. There's another one that we just got approval for. We have a grant that allows us to offer arts and creative arts programming. For example, acting, comedy, writing, improv, storytelling, visual arts. These are workshops and classes that we can offer to our participants as well. And the good thing about it is it's being taught by a professional organization called Armed Services Arts Partnership. They're a national organization, nonprofit, taught by veterans that are basically teaching veterans. So that's very, very important, I think, to have that professionalism to it. We're getting ready to start that up next month. And the other good thing about it is we are granted to provide that service not only to our Veterans Treatment Court, we are granted to provide it to all of the Veterans Treatment Courts in Wayne County. So it's an opportunity for any participant that's in any of the Wayne County Veterans Treatment Courts to do that. Now, having said all that, I got one important thing to say that I think I need to make sure everybody understands. Nothing starts until you identify whether or not you have served in the U.S. military or not. And that starts at the very beginning, particularly if you're an attorney meeting with a client, ask that question. Have you ever served in the military? I always preach that to everybody I talk to, because you'd be surprised how many individuals don't consider themselves to be veterans. And so the question is not necessarily, are you a veteran? Because most people, a lot of people come out of the military and don't realize they're a veteran. If you served 2 months in the Army, for example, you're still considered a veteran depending on how you got out. So the idea here is, I say this for all the attorneys in the audience, please make certain that when you work with your clients, male or female, ask them if they've ever served in the United States military. That is the key question. And if that's the case, now we have a track and a procedure to get them identified to be able to accept a lot of the programs that we have, and I just mentioned about in the programs here.
Murray, I would say, and I thank you for mentioning that. I don't know if, I know one thing as the defense, when I'm a prosecutor now, but I know when I was a previous as defense, I think we'd ask people if they were a U.S. citizen, what their immigration status, but rarely are we trained to ask, are you a veteran? If it doesn't come up in the communication and the consequences, it's very important that you're mentioning now so we can talk to our lawyers that handle divorce cases, they handle employment, labor law issues. I think what you said is very, very important. I don't know any courts, I know our court, we would like to, that's why we're hosting this, to be able to have some flyers on what we should have as prosecutors and when our MIDC attorneys, some pamphlets to show what is available that they can talk to with clients, both
Sure.
male and female.
Sure, we can do that. But I'm going to just question you one more time, Roger. You mentioned, are you a veteran? I'm trying to get everybody to realize that's not really the question you want to ask.
Thank you. Okay.
You want to ask, have you ever served in the United States military? That's the question you want to ask.
I see. And how would you recommend that we present it in terms of, like for instance, probation? I don't know if probation department asks that. Are you a veteran? It doesn't say have you served in the U.S. military. It says, are you a veteran?
I know the forms are really kind of not helping in that manner. What I'm sharing with you is what we in the organizations nationally are trying to get everyone to get in the habit of asking. And the forms don't lead up to the forms say, are you a veteran? Checkbox, are you a veteran?
Yes.
Really, the question when you are interviewing your client or interviewing someone is, have you ever served in the military? That's really the real question. And I know that that form doesn't really say that in many cases. I mean, they're beginning to do that. But right now, a lot of the forms just say, are you a veteran? Yes or no.
I would ask if any lawyers on the panel would have any questions to ask. For instance, yes.
I have a quick question.
And give your name and your telephone number.
Yeah.
So we can.
Rayad Murad, 313-445-8989. I practice criminal defense and some immigration law. Does the manner of discharge determine eligibility?
Yes.
So if it's like a dishonorable discharge, usually it's a disqualifying factor.
Typically.
And what if about like general discharge?
That is usually acceptable.
Got it. So if it's honorable or general discharge, it's usually, and you screen them, and you guys are going to go through that, and I'm sure it's
Absolutely.
a case by case basis too.
Absolutely.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, that's the controlling document. Once we get into the system, is everybody that has served in the military usually gets some sort of document. It's typically the DD-214. That is what we want to be able to see to verify a lot of the things that they're telling you. That a lot of veterans do have access to that. They have a copy of it. Some don't. But interestingly enough, the Michigan Veterans Affairs Agency, MVAA, in Lansing, has a facility where you can basically get online in their portal and type in the information about that veteran and find out if they've got a DD-214 available. And if they do, they'll quickly get it to you. And that's usually for any veteran that has served or resident in Michigan. Michigan Veterans Affairs Agency provides that.
Got it, thank you.
I actually have a question. My name's Hussein Saad, owner of Saad Law. I also work as the Assistant Corporation Counsel here in Dearborn Heights.
Okay.
And you mentioned that the question that should be asked is whether you serve in military, whether you have any service time, not whether you're a vet. Is there any particular reason why that question should be asked as opposed to the other?
Sure, there is. We've learned over the course of years that, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of individuals who have served in the military don't consider themselves a veteran when they get out because of some unusual circumstance that may have occurred. And so they may have, like I mentioned before, they may have served a month or two in the Army, and they got out with a general discharge. They don't consider themselves a veteran. And that's just their mentality. They say, well, I didn't get deployed overseas, so I'm not a veteran. None of those things matter, because if you have spent your time, you've raised your hand, you've taken that oath, and you've spent one day as a veteran, and you got out with something that's not dishonorable discharge, you are considered by the U.S. military as a veteran. So the question you ask is, have you ever served in the military? And I also go to the point, have you ever served in the United States military? Because some people say, yes. You know, so it's basically that question, I think, is the safest way to figure out whether or not you can identify a veteran that served. Because they don't themselves sometimes think of themselves as veterans because of the way they got out, or what they did or didn't do.
Interesting.
Yes.
So it's actually a good question you asked.
We may ask you at the podium with the light on, sir.
I have 3 minutes?
Yes, you have 3 minutes, but it won't record unless the light is, you know.
That's a good question. And, you know, one of the things is there's a lot of veterans who are actually from ethnicity, not from the, you know, there could be like a green card holders. Like even for me, I'll give you an example of me. When I joined the Marines, I think I was like 4.5 years max in country. So when I joined the Marines, you know, I barely spoke English. Just enough to pass the test. Well, it took me 3 times to pass the test. Mm-hmm. But when I did, you know, when I joined the Marines, I got out, I did 4 years, then got out, then finished my bachelor's and master's and went back in. And I still didn't know I was a veteran. So I didn't realize that till like 10 years later that they consider me a veteran, because, you know, they don't teach you that in the military. Like, hey, once you do your 4 years, 5 years, you're still considered a veteran. Even if somebody got medical discharge, you know, in boot camp, they're still a veteran, you know, because they got a medical discharge. But there's so many different discharges, but the point that Mr. Murray's trying to make is you got to ask them, have you served in the military? And it's up to them to figure out, you know, they're going to ask you for your DD-214. Your DD-214 is a form that when you get discharged out of the military, even if you do 20 years, you get several DD-214s. Because every time you do, like say you swore in for 4 years, when you finish your 4 years, even though you're going to re-enlist for another 4, you still get a DD-214. So like for me, I have several DD-214s because I did 21 years in the Marines. So with that, that's why you always ask the question, have you served? Then for them at the Veterans Court, Veterans Treatment Court, I'm sorry, what they'll do is they'll get your information, then they'll actually go in there and they can verify. There's a database that they can go into to see, because we do get a lot of people say, hey, yeah, I served. You know, they might have gotten a dishonorable discharge, or, you know, which is, you know, he talked about that. But we have to verify. I mean, they have to verify. So that's the thing. Even for us, people that came in from a different ethnicity to the United States, they join with, you know, hard like language, you know, barriers. You still don't know. So that's why you always ask, because we bumped into, you know, I probably had over 2-3 dozens of mentees that I mentored. And a lot of them, you know, had no idea what their rights are. And that's why, you know, the Veterans Treatment Court, you know, that's what they do, is to educate these people like, hey, you have rights, you know. I mean, just a great question. I mean, we have, you know, 2 veterans here. I'd like to introduce them, if possible. We have a 3 Purple Heart recipient, you know, I'd like to talk, you know, later. It's Chris. So maybe they can come in and introduce themselves, you know, just to show you how important this is to the veterans. Like, you guys are the attorneys, like, you guys can make somebody's life You know, like you guys can turn people around. You know, they can be in the dumps. They do something silly. You know, we all done it. You know, then you can just like, instead of like crucifying somebody, just one little kindness that you guys do as attorneys, that you can turn somebody's life. You know, I've had a mentee, he was just the bottle, got him in big trouble. You know, instead of going to prison, you know, he got into a very bad fight, ended up injuring someone with a fight. So he turns around, this guy is like, he's a manager of a big company, you know, because people like you know, represented, you know, this guy and got him out of, like, you know, the bottle, you know, and the Veterans Treatment Court. But it took like defense attorneys like you guys have to continuously talk to them. So I don't want to take too much, but, you know, that's why you always ask that question, because some people, you know, I've seen them, you know, they go into training, you know, they get injured, then they get a medical discharge. They're still veterans, you know, because they tried to serve, but they got injured, you know, either in boot camp or they got like a few months in service. You know, sometimes you get deployed and you get injured overseas, you know, you get discharged less than a year, you're still a veteran. I'm sorry, I just had to say that just to clarify, because, you know, a lot of people that haven't served, like, you don't really realize the severity of really helping veterans. And, you know, I'd like actually, you know, so you guys know, if you want to go before you guys talk, you know, like we can have, there's two veterans. There's a retired Dearborn Heights police officer who served in the Marines. And Chris, you know, he served in the U.S. Army, and he's got 3 Purple Hearts. He was injured 3 times, 3 Purple Hearts. So I don't know if you guys want to talk.
With the mayor's permission, would you like to step up, please, and
Chris, why don't you guys come up and you can just introduce yourself.
Mayor will.
And
Thank you.
just you know, you can say like you served, what branch you served, you know, where you served, and how long you served, you know, the podium. And Chris is Chris Killian, so you can put the dots together.
Chris, thank you for your service. Gentlemen, thank you for your service.
Yes, you can ask him now.
What do I have to say?
Just a little bit of what
Name,
you've done,
rank,
sir.
serial number.
Chris Killian, E5 Sergeant, wounded 4 times actually, 3 Purple Hearts, and I've been a resident of Dearborn Heights since I've been home. What was the other thing? Something else? No? Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, my name is Joseph Rennie. I'm a Marine Corps veteran. I was just here wondering if I can ask questions about a disability rating or denial I just received as a result of being based at Camp Lejeune with the contaminated water. I've had numerous medical problems. I had just applied for neuropathy that was determined by a neurologist, 2 of them, and I sent it in, and because they said I did not complain while I was in the Marine Corps, it's not my service record, I've been denied. Now, this neurologist for 43 years said this is a direct result of the toxins from Camp Lejeune water. Can anybody answer why I would have been denied or how I go about an appeal?
Well, one thing I would say, we don't know your specific file, but I think Murray will talk a little bit about what resources can be available, because we want to make sure you get help. And that's one reason why we're having this seminar.
Well, first off, thank you for your service too, sir.
Thank you.
I didn't go Marine, I was Air Force. But
Thank you.
Don't hold that against me. But regarding, if you were at Camp Lejeune, and I'm not sure of the timeline that you were there.
81 to 85.
Okay, there, obviously, Camp Lejeune there is a PACT Act that's involving Camp Lejeune, and that should be a presumption, should be. Now, if there's reason they denied it, we'd have to find out why, and you might have to go back and get a nexus letter from someone else, another specialist that agrees with the one that you've got. In other words, give them more support about your condition and where it occurred. And the whole idea is more support basically leaves them in a position, well, more than likely, and I'll use that term exactly.
Yes.
More than likely, your condition was caused by exposure to ABCD at Camp Lejeune during this time period.
Right, which is what the 2 other neurologists said. They work in the same office. So that was put in that form more likely than not. But when I went and seen the VA doctor, they agreed I had the neuropathy bilateral, but because I'd never complained about it, which is what it states in here, when I was in the Marine Corps, they're not accepting responsibility. That's a problem. How could I possibly have known then I was going to have the kidney cancer or any of these problems I'm having now?
Of course.
So, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Bill.
Is that your first?
Mr. Mayor, I'm just going to ask you if you could speak.
Yes.
Just so it can get recorded.
Yeah, so this is, okay, so I'm sorry, I know some of the stuff is kind of personal.
That's all right.
Because of HIPAA. So have you applied with the VA before?
Yes, prior through American Legion.
For something else?
Yes.
So this is your first denial?
This is the first denial because this was the second filing for something different.
Okay, so what you have to do, so if you have a rating from the past, this is a military talk.
Yeah.
So if you have a rating in the past.
Yes.
Okay, that's good. So for now, what you have to do is you have to appeal it. So when you appeal it, they always refuse the first one. So appeal it, and let's you and I talk.
Okay.
Let's connect. I'm gonna get you connected with some people.
Okay.
Yeah, this is kind of, they're talking about like something, this is a VA issue. So I'll get you connected with the right people from that can help you through the VA process. So this is, one of the things that we try to do. And actually, there's somebody supposed to be here from MVAA. I'm hoping they'll show up, then you can talk to them.
Okay, great.
But if not, I'll get you connected with them. So we were supposed to get somebody that has service officer experience.
Right.
that can help you
I
with
have
that.
a Vietnam VSO right now I'm going through.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of looking for some more insight. That's
Yeah.
kind of why I came
Yeah,
here
we
today.
can try to get you somebody from the DAV.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Before I ask Murray to explain a little bit more about the actual treatment court, go further, if you can explain just how your treatment court works in Dearborn, how someone gets into the court. We're looking to really make sure we're incorporating it here in our city, Dearborn Heights. We have a large number of veterans and are people who have served in the military that are here. We want to make sure that we're reaching them. Make sure that if they come to court for whether ordinance issues or other misdemeanor matters or even felony matters, that they have they're being asked the right questions and the right resources.
Okay. All right, sure. First off, to get into a veterans treatment court, you have to commit a crime. I know it sounds weird, but you do. You have to commit a crime. And if it's a misdemeanor crime or a felony crime, you can still appeal or get asked to be able to qualify for a veterans treatment court. As I mentioned earlier, if it's a misdemeanor, the district level veterans treatment courts like us are able to find out if you're eligible or not and bring you into the court. In other words, your case gets transferred from where you got the offense, the jurisdiction that you got the offense in, like the 20th District Court, over to us at the 19th District Court in Dearborn, and into the Veterans Treatment Court if we qualify you as being eligible. Now, that's a misdemeanor criminal offense. On the other hand, if it's a felony, then typically we do not take a felony offense case. Typically, that is routed to the Third Circuit down in Detroit. That's generally the Veterans Treatment Court that handles felony criminal offenses. So that's the distinction. Now, once your case has been transferred, and it's a procedure to do that, the relinquishing jurisdiction has to sign off on it, and of course, we have to sign off on it. And then you are appealed. You could basically appear before Judge Hunt in one of our hearings, and you go through a series of questions and answers, and then Judge Hunt wants to make certain that you want to go into the Veterans Treatment Court, and if you agree at that point, and we will bring you into the Veterans Treatment Court with your case. And from that point forward, you have an assignment for a probation case officer, and that probation case officer will set you up so that we go through 4 phases. There's a 12 to 18-month term, and the 12 to 18-month term is broken up into what we call phases. And with each phase, you need to achieve certain milestones. Particularly, let's say, for example, your offense was DWI or driving under influence or something in that manner. You are going to be drug tested or alcohol tested on a regular basis, not exactly on the same day or time, but it's basically a time where for weeks, you will have to go and get your urine tested and whatever else, if it's a substance abuse test. The bottom line is we got to make sure that you are progressing. And if you do that successfully, you progress through the phases on a regular basis. And we've had many participants go through without any problems at all. Their cases usually adjudicated and graduated within 12 months. In other cases where you had fallback and you failed, basically takes you longer to get through the program. But that's essentially what it is. It's a 4-phase program that we use where you have to meet certain criteria and progressions through those phases.
Murray, if I ask you, would there be any mental health treatment or counseling available for veterans?
Yes.
And how would that work?
Typically, we use the facilities out of the Veterans Treatment Court, VA, I got Veterans Treatment Court on the brain, out of the VA at either Detroit or Ann Arbor. Those two mental health medical facilities usually provides those kinds of services. Now, if they are not available for whatever reason, we have the ability to bring in auxiliary treatment providers that we contract with.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to introduce Nadia. I want to say she's visiting today. It's our mayor's wife, and I want to say happy birthday, Nadia, for being here.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Okay, I'm going to ask some of our attorneys to talk about some of their cases that they do, and then we'll come back and should report. Can you just introduce yourself?
Sure. Good evening, Attorney Muhammad Ali Hamoud. I head up the Family Division at Murad Law, 313-445-8989. First of all, I want to thank all the veterans for your service. It's because of you, ladies and gentlemen, I am able to come here and speak, practice law, and advocate on your behalf. As I said, I do family, which involves divorce, child custody, child support, parenting time, other disputes. I think Roger asked to share some stories. I think one of the most important things when clients come to my office is they're looking for two things. One, communication. They want someone who's going to be able to hear them out, communicate back and forth with them. And the second thing they're looking for is a voice. Regardless of, I've had outcomes where they weren't favorable, but because I was able to advocate for them, give my client a voice, they really appreciated that. And I think whether you're a veteran or not, I think veterans appreciate it a little bit more if you're able to just give them a voice.
Very good. Thank you. And have you had clients with post-traumatic stress disorder, or in terms of how does that affect a case or something of that nature?
So one of the factors that the courts look at is obviously the mental health of the parties, right? So mental health is very important. It doesn't disqualify you from seeing your children, having any type of parenting time, but it's one of the important factors with regards to child custody. We've had plenty of cases where we had clients with PTSD, anxiety, depression, other diagnoses, and we're able to still get them a very favorable outcome. So it doesn't discourage you from having a good outcome. It's just as long as you're getting treatment, you're following what your doctor's required, it does not prevent you, or it doesn't disqualify you from having a case in your favor. I'll pass it off to Mr. Hussein.
No problem. Thank you, Mohammed. I want to also thank all the vets here today for their service. My name's Hussein Saad, Assistant City Attorney here in Dearborn Heights, also owner of Saad Law PLLC, 6 Park Lane Boulevard, Suite 110, Dearborn, Michigan. And I'm going to use actually what Mr. Murray said here today, and that's ask whether they had time served, whether they served in the military as opposed to whether or not they're a vet. I think people serving in the military is often overlooked, especially in the legal field. It's something we don't ask about, and it's something we don't think about, in all honesty. And as a prosecutor here in Dearborn Heights, dealing with a bunch of cases, that's not something that I really would even think of, just really. And I think that speaks volumes to how overlooked vets are in the legal system. So when you have vet courts like what we have in the 19th District Court, that's needed and it's necessary, and it contributes to the change we need to see. And you know, if I'm dealing with a vet who is a defendant, that's something you have to consider, whether or not they should be enrolled in a vet court program, because it's all about rehabilitation. It's all about having that defendant fix themselves so that they not only not commit the crime in the future, but also so that they're a better person overall. And sometimes you need a specialized court to do that, like a vet court, because the reality is it's so delicate and sensitive that it's best to leave it to the experts who know it. And so I think it's necessary, and I think having events like here today, right here in Dearborn Heights, it's important because it brings awareness to a problem that needs help.
Thank you, Zane.
Good evening. My name is Alat Soap, and I'm a partner and owner of Metro Legal Group. It's a multi-service law firm located here in Dearborn Heights, Michigan, actually. I run the personal injury department as well as the family law department, and I handle cases from child custody, child support, to just divorces. And actually, Mr. Murray mentioned sometimes in the applications we'll ask if the person's a veteran. In the personal injury applications, a lot of times they ask if you've ever been enlisted in the military, when you were discharged, whether or not you were injured, if you've had any prior treatment. So I think the insurance companies also take a look at that for the overall case.
Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you to all of the service members who have contributed and allowed me and everyone here in the room to enjoy the privilege of being a United States citizen, an American, a proud American. So thank you for what you do to allow us to do what we do. Transitioning into how I could help any service members who may have questions into the future. My name is Ali Ajami. I'm a member, partner of Metro Legal Group. I focus my practice on business law and landlord-tenant issues. I think I'm telling you, there are specific rules and protections to make sure that veterans have a place to be, and if they do need to break out of a lease or something along those lines, there are special protections that our legislators have afforded to you for the sacrifices you've made as one who did once serve. So if you have any questions and you want to talk about any issues that you may be having with respect to your business or perhaps your housing situation, I would be happy to consult with you and help you get back on track. 313-732-9400. Thank you again for your service, and I hope to help you soon.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, Raed Murad. I'm a criminal defense and immigration attorney. Also, thank you to our veterans. We appreciate you dearly. I have a ton of stories. I've also done a lot of public defense work out of 36th District Court, and I've seen a lot of indigent veterans actually come through on different charges. One of the craziest things to me is seeing a veteran charged with like the carrying concealed weapon charge. Because it's like, right, you're allowed to carry a firearm for a country, but not one in your own backyard. I always, took issue with that. But you see PTSD all the time with our veterans, especially some of our elderly veterans. You see a lot of alcohol abuse, a lot of drug abuse. I mean, you see it everywhere, but it's always sad when you see it with our veterans because there's a lot of that has to do with trauma. And I think almost everybody on this panel has done some form of criminal defense in one way or another. And I can tell you all that we're also social workers. We're not only lawyers. A lot of the times we're connecting with outside agencies or third parties to help get people resources they need. I know almost every one of us probably has an NA or an AA contact or some sort of outpatient treatment center that we frequently refer our clients to, and it's a two-step process. It's, helping you resolve your case and also helping you, address the problem that got you to the case in the first place. Veterans Treatment Court, I think, does an excellent job, especially providing some of the incentives. There are a lot of, drinking offenses and driving offenses that have certain license sanctions. Enrollment into some of these, graduating from some of these specialty courts like Veterans Treatment Courts can give you an incentive to get your license, maybe sooner than you would have had you not been accepted into that program. So, a ton of resources. Everybody should be watching this, especially if you're a veteran. You can really catch a break and get some help in court.
Thank you. Thank you, Rod. I'm going to ask Donna Malouf, who's present at this talk at the podium, and make sure the light's on. Donna works with our Veterans Court, Redford. She works with a MDIC which is legal defense work for our cases here in Dearborn Heights. And I would appreciate, Donna, thank you so much for your time.
Oh, my pleasure. Hello, everybody, and thank you for your services as well, Bazzi. So I started out with the Redford District Court, and they have Karen Khalil spearheaded that, and then Maddox Chevrolet, Molly Williams, many of you probably know her as well. We've done a great deal of fundraising. There's money available. We have mentorships. They earn the coins when they get through the program. We incentivize them by even just gift cards or food cards from Myers. It's a rigorous program, and it's not for the faint of heart, but it offers so many things. I think if you touched on housing, benefits, there's a lot that they're doing now. They're training the police force differently. They're saying, no, you need to notice this because the sounds, the lights, all of those different things can aggravate an already a tenuous situation for these people. And I think our duty is just to get them into a better place, let them launch from a better area. And when you see these graduates, I don't know you personally, it is so incredibly moving when you watch them and you see their families. Like I can come to tears now, but you see their families supporting them in going through, many hours. And then they have bagel and coffee time downstairs in the basement at Redford, just to come and talk to other veterans and say, you're not alone, and we're going to walk you through it.
Don, if I was going to ask you, working with MDIC program, are we addressing or asking people who come through the system if they have military?
Have you served in the military?
Have you served in the military?
You get it, Roger.
And it's the MIDC, the Michigan Indigent Defense Council. And no, I don't think they do. I do just because I know it. And when people start talking to me, you can tell, you get a read on where they're coming from. And then we have the conversation. And many of them are very hesitant to commit to this because it's a commitment. And some of them say, you know what, I'll just take the jail time. Well, no, you don't want to just take the jail time. And you kind of need to walk them through it a little bit. Because sometimes they're looking for a quick, easy fix, answer, and that's not what you want them to do. I think we, as attorneys, have to have it front of mind when you're dealing with a lot of indigent defense people who did serve, and you need to find that out.
I think with creating in addition to the forms we have, something they can inquire about if they've served in the military
I think that should be immediate. I think that's something that should be recognized. And I think that has to be, we're getting the word out now. Right. People are seeing it more. Because there are more courts, the sobriety court, the various courts that we have available to people now. I think people are learning.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Murray, would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yes. 100%. Okay. We're neighboring courts, and we're both doing the same thing. I know the individuals over at Redford very well, Judge Khalil, and
she's a champion for this. Yeah. Pardon? She's a champion for this too.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
When they come, say, I want to ask you one more question. When they, you just have to talk at the podium because it won't get recorded. But are there like websites we could go on as prosecutors to make sure that we're communicating and addressing the needs of the veterans when we're trying to work out a plea, work out sentencing, or work out resources for them? Make available to our probation department, that that we could use.
I don't know that. I have a contact in the court, and she knows everything. And she is Judge Cleel's right hand, Janet. You maybe dealt with. Yes, everyone knows her. And she coordinates everything for us.
Okay. Well, it might be a good idea for our court, Dearborn Heights, that we have access to someone like that, so we can make it available. Does it cost money for the court or people to?
Yes, it does, and that's why they do fundraisers. And I know Maddox Chevrolet does that car and drive, and Bazzi, you were involved with that as well. So there is, but there's money available. People want to spend money on this. DTE donates. I mean, a lot of companies will also fund it.
So I would say if we can start an initiative in Dearborn Heights to start raising money for our veterans court and resources, that might be something we should pursue or could pursue.
I think it's a great idea.
Hear, hear.
Agree.
Thank you.
I have a quick suggestion / question. What if you, like, you know how whenever somebody pleads guilty to an offense and is expected to get some sort of probation, they usually do like a pre-screening, they call it a pre-sentence investigation or interview. What if you have like a questionnaire that you ask for everybody and you just list that as one of the questions if you don't already? I think that's something that would weed out like plenty of them, and then who knows, you can even offer them the opportunity to transfer to the 19th District's Veterans Treatment Court right from the probation department. So it's just like, by the time, you don't even have to do sentencing. You know, by the time it gets there, Dearborn's already aware, the documents are sent to each other, and you guys don't even have to do anything. You can just add it as a questionnaire through the probation department. Saves everybody a lot of time, and probably get a lot more candidates pushed to Dearborn.
That's called a PSI.
Right.
And basically what we do is when we get those, we generally do them in the probation department. Unfortunately, by the time it gets to the probation department, hopefully the question's already been answered. Have you ever served in the military?
I would hope, yeah.
I think that should be done early on in negotiations.
Yeah, agreed.
Right. But we can't track, other private defense attorneys or other defense attorneys what questions they're really asking. You know, we don't know. We hope that we do it.
Well, we can make it as as we put our forms out, we make sure our lawyers, defense lawyers that come through, are asking the questions and making sure services are available. As the prosecutors, we're not representing the defendants, obviously, but we want to make sure justice is served, and we want to make sure that the right questions, right services are being applied. We don't want people repeating because they've done some time, but they haven't gotten any treatment or help. And I've had many cases in the private sector, no one asked if this person had a mental health problem. They went through lawyer after lawyer, they went through sentencing, and then I find out that they have post-traumatic stress disorder, they have schizophrenia, bipolar disorder. No one ever made sure they were on their medications or asked the questions. And I think that we need to have something out there to ask, well, have you served in the military? Have you, and what did you do? And so we can make sure if behavioral disorders or things like that are being addressed. And I would expand it beyond criminal to include, we make sure that services when it's in the city address if there's employment issues, if they're discriminated at the job because of certain symptoms, no one's addressing it, or if it's a divorce or a custody battle, that our circuit courts have that address our veterans from Dearborn Heights are being helped or have assistance of attorneys like we've had here today that will ask the questions and be available. Well, I'm going to wind us down. Yes. Sorry.
On the court-appointed for getting a court-appointed attorney, is it on that form at all? Do we have any of those type of questions?
I don't believe so, but
we have it in Dearborn.
You do. Is that something maybe we can modify?
Yes. Well, we can add it and make sure it's on the questionnaire in Dearborn Heights. So, well, thank you guys for coming out tonight. I'm hoping this video will make it onto our website, Mr. Mayor. If you have closing remarks or.
Nice to see you.
So, one of the things, you guys asked some amazing questions. I tell you, I am so proud of you guys. And, my wife, actually, I can hear her in the background talking. She's like, I'm so proud of these guys. Like, you guys, like, seriously, like, I'm proud to be in this community with you guys, amazing attorneys. And I mean, this is very serious. Like, you know, it's easy when, you know, people like say, hey, you know, thank you for your service, you know, or like, hey, you know what, you know, thank you for what you've done. But what you guys, like, if you can have an impact on one veteran's life, just one person, just imagine, you know, like some of the stuff, you know, I started in Redford, you know, I was a mentor at Redford Court with Judge Khalil, just my little sister. And I can tell you, and I've seen a lot of amazing works, you know, that she's done in the past. I was there for a few years. Then, sorry, Gene Hunt, you know, he's a Marine, so I have to go to Dearborn. So I went to Dearborn, you know, I was trying to help out also over there. And, you know, thank you for everything that you do for our veterans. And Murray, same thing with you. You know, I've seen you at all the meetings. You know, I appreciate both of you. But I'm really grateful for the attorneys that actually can help some of our veterans, because it really means a lot, you know. Like, I remember I was talking to a judge probably like 7, 8 years ago, and that judge told me that the reason why he got into a veterans court, you know, veterans treatment court, is he was actually walking by a jail cell, and he saw a person in a cell. Then he just didn't like, you know, just the way that this person didn't want to be in a cell, because he was like, he looked like he was claustrophobic, you know. So he came up and he was talking to him, and he's like, hey, you know, are you okay? Are you this and that? And he found out that this guy's a combat veteran, and he just didn't want to be cooped up in a small cell. And that's what prompted and motivated the judge to actually start helping, you know, be on the Veterans Court, you know, try to advocate for Veterans Court. So then they found out why this person was in there, and it was something so silly. You know, they charged him, I believe, for like loitering or something so silly, and it's the reason why he had a flashback. You know, there was like fireworks, and there was a lot of crazy stuff going on. You know, there was like, and this person just wanted to take shelter because he just didn't like the noise. So that's why they arrested him. So the police officer actually, you know, it's really like unique. That's what I mean, is there's a lot of stuff that when you guys, one of the things that we wanted to talk about, you know, like we should have talked about also, is the police officers, you know, that's one of the things that I brought also up, you know, several times, even in Dearborn, you know, Redford or, you know, Dearborn Heights, is for the officer to ask that question to, you know, it's like, hey, you know, have you served this and that, you know, just kind of talk to the person. And that's like early identification, you know, when the police makes contact with a person, you know, to make sure. And, you know, a lot of officers, I think we have to train officers, you know, especially if officers are veterans, they know. So you know a veteran by their behavior, the way they act, but a police officer has never served, you know, or a new officer would not know, you know, unless you're trained, like, you know, to identify certain behaviors, you know, with veterans. But, you know, with you guys, you know, the attorneys, you know, you guys can really do a lot, you know, a lot of help if you do engage, you know, try to help out. Like, by you being here today is like a really high in my book. You know, you guys took your own time, you know, by being here and just wanted to help out veterans. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. And I'm going to add some things. Mayor Bazzi has really challenged us and had some meetings with veterans at his office to look at a separate issue of empowerment, wealth, increasing wealth, values for veterans, of owning their own properties. We were talking with an organization about how to set up land trusts or land banks to help veterans afford houses, to be able to, especially in Dearborn Heights. And how can we use our properties and our empty lots to help veterans develop a wealth, sustain wealth, generational wealth, and be able to grow and not just come in at rent and move out, but be able to change from renters to homeowners and to change generational patterns or overcome obstacles in terms of being able to have home ownership and businesses and small businesses. And Mr. Mayor has pulled a number of veterans together and said, let's get this started. And we really appreciate the vision. Look at the veterans in our courts, look at the vision for veterans moving forward in home ownership, gaining a status, and empowering our communities. And I thank you again, Mr. Mayor, for hosting this.
Thank you. I thank you guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.